Hey guys, welcome back to Sarcastic Remarks alongside Chris and James. My name is Ryan. We are the official Dallas Stars podcast of THPN. Go and use the promo code THPN next time you go and use the products from Manscaped, DraftKings, and BetterHelp. We thank them for being our sponsors, as always. Anyways, guys, I would say we are in the dead dog days of summer because there ain't nothing going on, and I am really tired. I don't know about you guys, but how are y'all doing?
Yup, just watching a bunch of random sports that I've never heard of before and cheering them like I've watched them my entire life. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, at least the Olympics gives me something to watch in my off time, but not quite as fulfilling as I would have hoped it would be.
Well, the Rangers are playing great. They just got swept by the Blue Jays, so that's really good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. After
Watch that. I just watched them get beat like 8-1. That was fun.
I'm sure that was so much fun. They literally went from having a winning record to having a losing record, and they lost 4 times to one of the worst teams in the MLB right now.
They haven't had a winning record since the first month of the season, so he must have been watching the other Rangers.
Well, the other Rangers ain't doing much better either. But anyways, other than that, like I said, there ain't nothing going on. The hockey-wise, I should say. But we're here to talk to you guys today. We got to finish up our season grades, mostly for the defensemen and also for the goaltenders. We'll get into that. And Chris and James will make fun of me because I give more A's than either one of them. And then we'll also get into the more fun thing, way too early season predictions. I went back and listened to our old one from last year. Ooh.
Yeah, that one was terrible.
Yeah, it was really bad. Like I think I had St. Louis in making the playoffs, and that was
didn't I have St. Louis like last in the division?
I think you had St. Louis like last in the division. I think Chris, you had Minnesota making the playoffs too. So
I don't think that one's crazy, honestly.
That's pretty crazy. That was pretty crazy. I don't know. All right.
They were close.
Okay. Anyways, let's just jump right into it and start going on with the season grades for the defensemen. Just jump right into it. Miro Heiskanen, what do you give him and why?
A minus meets expectations, but his expectations are high. So, A minus. I wish he scores more.
I would give him a better grade if he didn't hype himself up so much during the offseason. I mean, I don't know if y'all remember, but like even he was talking about wanting to be the best defenseman in the league. And I mean, in the first 2 months, he was out of the race completely. So, I'll give him a B+. I should give him higher. I give him lower because he expected more from himself and he missed the mark very quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to point out now, as Ryan's about to give the A+. Me and James are kind of basing this based off of what their expectation was going into the season. And like James said, his expectation for himself was a Norris candidate. And
It wasn't even my.
He was the Stars' best defenseman by a mile. Yeah. Absolutely.
Far and away. If he didn't say what he did before the season started, he would probably have an A+. I'm not gonna lie. But
all right, Ryan, A+.
Y'all are such haters, I swear.
Man, we called it, didn't we, James?
This guy is a number 1 defenseman. Probably should make $10 million against the cap. Only makes 8.
100%.
He is 24, 25. He is a top 10 defenseman in the league.
Agreed.
Hands down. No, James, don't you do no side eye.
That's close.
He's borderline 10.
He's low on that list, Ryan. He is.
No, that's absolute bullcrap.
Very good. He's ridiculously good. He is hitting.
Okay, is this a Stars podcast or is this like a let's
We're being real, Ryan.
We're just being honest, realistic graders here.
Miro Heiskanen's amazing. That's all I got.
He's top 10 defenseman. I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. A-.
A+. My gosh, let's move on. Thomas Harley. I'm not even gonna get into it.
There's an A+.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Thomas Harley was a massive question mark before the season started last year. I mean,
what did he do in the playoffs?
he had an outstanding playoffs. Absolutely amazing. And he did that in a third line role. And what we expected from him was to be a solid number 2 guy going into this season. And he well exceeded those expectations and found himself the number 2 defenseman on the entire team and scored a crazy amount of goals and almost won the league in defenseman goal scoring. So he blew out expectations. Maybe his playoffs wasn't as good. He didn't show that offensive side like we saw, but it was also his first full NHL season, which has proven to be grueling to rookies and younger players like him, even compared to the AHL. AHL, you're playing a series a weekend pretty much. NHL, night in, night out, you got to be there. So he's got to catch up on the conditioning. I agree with his end of season performance and in the playoffs, but still, we expected him to be a solid second pairing guy, and he's our solid number 2 defenseman right now.
Yeah, and it's not even close. He's the second best defenseman on the team.
Well, what's your grade, James?
I'll give him a normal A.
Okay.
Don't back down
Chris,
to Ryan.
Chris,
Don't back
I
down
can't
on him.
believe you. You would put a top 10 at least. See, the Motto and Nate over here saying top 5.
We're not on a linear scale. We're not grading everyone on the same scale. That's not how grades work in this podcast.
Okay,
right
but
now.
you can't give a defenseman of that caliber who plays 25 plus minutes a night, who regularly during the playoffs was the best defenseman. We never had to get onto him. Played up against guys like Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan McKinnon, Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault.
I mean, you can keep listed people, but yes, he was our best defenseman. He was the best defenseman
you're
on
gonna
the ice almost every game, and he gets an A-. Yes, because he said he was going to be a Norris candidate, and he wasn't. I'm grading hard. He's one of the best defensemen in the league.
What is he supposed to say, Chris? Oh, I just want to be
exactly
a mediocre number 1 defenseman?
No, that's exactly what I want him to say. And I want him to do it, too.
That's the only reason why he gets an A- or a B+ is because he made that one comment?
Yes, sir. No, not the comment. No. Mine is expectations. His expectations is to be the best defenseman in the league, because he can.
And the other thing is, like, he didn't
Sorry, by the way, I'm sorry. I keep taking it back to Miro. I apologize.
He didn't even have the same regular season that he did last year. He had a worse regular season this year than last year. He had 73 points last year. He had 54 this year.
I think
that's a pretty drastic drop back.
I think it's fair to hold our best players to higher standards. I mean, that's not a bad thing. When you get to a point where, like, Toronto is calling out their players for only scoring 3 goals a week, I mean, then you're too far, obviously. But I'm just saying Miro has the potential to be the best defenseman in the NHL. So, and he didn't do it last year, but he absolutely can do it again next year. I have the same expectations for him to be a top 3 defenseman in the NHL, not a top 10. He can be a top 3, and he can score a ton of points and have the same defensive prowess that he has right now. That's why he gets the lower score.
Okay, I will still give Miro the A+, but I'm gonna give Harley an A, and it's mostly because he did come out and become that number 2 defenseman like y'all were saying. I still wish he had played a little bit better in the playoffs than he did. I did not see him playing as well as he did in the regular season. That's the only reason why he's not an A+. The only reason is just because he did raise those expectations for me, and he just didn't match that.
Ryan just did the exact same thing I did with Miro, but within the season. This is jank.
No, this is not jank. Okay, Esa Lindell.
See, this one's weird because, like, he did what I expected, but, like, I don't really expect much.
It's hard to do defensemen because defensemen are so different nowadays than they used to be.
Well, it's especially harder to do Esa Lindell because I can't remember whose article it was. I want to say it was David Castillo, but he did an article on Esa Lindell, and he was like, he's the guy you never notice, and he does it amazingly. So I think he's one of the best players that doesn't cross your mind ever. So I guess he gets an A for me because he did exactly what he did the past 3 years, and that's be solid and not noticeable.
He did have that one year where I think he was double-digit in goals, but that was several years ago. I think that was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even 6.
And I think that was the year when Klingberg got hurt and he had to step into that top role, and he actually played on the power play, I think.
Right, exactly. I think he had like something. It was crazy for him. He had like 11 or 12 goals or something like that.
Yeah, he had 11 goals.
That's nuts for Esa Lindell. Imagine
season.
That's before COVID, man. Uh, it is weird. It is weird to kind of grade Essa Lindell on the same way that you would do either Miro or Harley. I'm kind of like you, Chris. I guess he gets an A. Because like you never really notice him because of all of the good things he does. But here's my question though: is like, why are we so kind of on Essa Lindell, but the way that Tanev played, we're like, oh my goodness, like A plus, absolutely, like amazing defense. Like, what's the difference between Essa and Tanev?
I think it's just the amount of time they're on the team because I would argue that Tanev played pretty much the same way that Lundqvist. Oh my goodness!
Oh man,
we're not there yet.
I wish. I wish that there's if he was
one thing he does do is he
Tanev,
shot blocks a little bit more, so he puts the body on the line a little bit more than Lindell does, I think. And he's also just a bigger guy. I think he's more noticeable. And then the fact that he was only here for 20, 30 games, that'll make you notice him more too.
Yeah.
I think if he was here for 5 years, he would be about the same.
Okay.
Sorry.
Advanced stats would disagree, but advanced stats aren't everything, especially when you talk about where Essa was playing as well. I mean, he's playing with Tanev on that line. I mean, he's to some extent he's got to be helping Tanev with those stats as well. I'm gonna give Essa an A as well. I don't have any complaints with him. There's nothing really much to talk about, which is kind of a good thing for him.
It's kind of his whole career.
There's a reason why he gets paid $5.8 million. Just kind of very quietly does his job. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. Do you want to go with Tanev?
We do Tanev.
Yeah, let's do Tanev. Chris Tanev, what do you give?
It's an A plus. He was by far the best trade line acquisition of the season. I don't think anyone else was better than him that moved at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, he came in and he exceeded my expectations for him, honestly. I mean, I wanted someone who was just going to be solid, and he was. I mean, we played 5 defensemen because of how confident we were in everyone playing 20 minutes a night. It was especially how well he just clicked with the team. It was like he had one bad week when he first got here, and then it just snapped right in place. And that's something you're not going to see.
That's something that I was a little bit worried about with Tanev coming over here, because he was obviously the number one most talked about defensive, trade acquisition this past trade deadline. And I was afraid that we were going to expect a lot because he was that big of a name coming in, and we had heard all these things about him, and he came in and he was absolutely the key to the lock that we were trying to figure out on the defensive side of the puck for the Stars. Like, he was the answer. Absolutely 100% the answer. Just really wish we could have kept him. But for me, as far as like a grade, I'll give him an A+ too. How many times do we say, oh, there he goes again. He's just doing his thing. And again, maybe it's just like you said, Chris, maybe it's just because he was the new shiny toy, and we're used to Essa and how he plays, but it seemed like he was every single game with the exception of maybe one. I think there was one game where I was like, oh, that was a bad game by Tanev. It seemed like every single game he was making like game-saving defensive plays in his own zone. It was just ridiculous and fantastic how he played for the Stars. So,
and it might have been correlation, not causation, but when he got here, that's also as soon as Jake Ottinger finally picked up last season too. So.
And that's not a coincidence. So, okay, moving on from Tanev here. Who do we want to go to next? Because after that, it's kind of a mosh podge. I guess Ryan Suter's not really a mosh podge. Let's go with Ryan Suter. What would you give him?
Honestly, I give Suter a B+ for this last season. I thought he played a lot better during the regular season than he has the past 2 years, and his playoffs was fine. He was playing a lot because we only had 5 defensemen, and he did okay. He wasn't the reason we lost.
Yeah, I mean, if Ryan Suter was not left-handed, he would still be on the team, I think. I really believe that because he did not play bad at all. I mean, even the people who hate Suter on Twitter and constantly call him out didn't have much to say when we were down the stretch and in the playoffs as well.
He was winning people over. Even I wouldn't even say not much to say. He was like, people actually, hey, Suter's doing all right. Yeah. And that's because he was put on that third pair finally, where we said he needed to be from the beginning. And I think that's really what helped him.
I agree with everything y'all said. I don't really have anything else to add on top of that, other than the fact that you know, it really sucks because like we would see like amazing flashes from him, especially the last couple of years. He kind of stepped it up. We would see really good, like a period of like a week or two where he'd be really, 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 really good, and then he would just have 1 or 2 games where he just just got skated over. So, and then even in the playoffs, the last 2 years, he had really good stretches. There was a reason why they were relying on 5 defensemen, and he was one of those 5. There was a reason for that. But you know, not for the money that he was making as a 5th defenseman. I'll give him an A- to be a little bit nicer, but I kind of would be leaning toward the B+ side, to be honest.
I didn't say mine. I would have given him an A-.
Okay, so we're all sort of kind of right there in the stratosphere. Okay, now this is where it kind of gets a little bit tough to kind of talk about some of these other guys, because either we didn't see a lot of them or there's a lot of controversy around them. So let's start with obviously the biggest controversy, and for some reason this is just the bane of existence when it comes to Stars fans and talking points. Nils Lundkvist. What do you give Nils Lundkvist as far as a grade for this past season?
F. Failure. I mean, you also got to think about it, where we started the season at. He was starting the season as the defenseman on the number 2 power play unit. That was what it was at the start of the season. He was given all the tools to make an impact and to cement himself onto the team. And he just could not do it at any point. And that's just what's been so frustrating about him the past 2 years, is you can see the skills that he has. He is a good hockey player. He has it all, and he just can't put it together yet. And they gave him 1 more year to do it again, to give it another shot. And I guess he's playing with the Stars this season. I'm going to assume that until we see him get put on waivers, but it doesn't make much sense to me to, after 2 years of not success and a lot of opportunity, that he's still on the team.
Yeah. Ryan, can you bring up the comment that Nate G just put in the chat? So Nate says the one below.
Oh, the very first one?
Yeah. So he said about Nils Lundkvist, except the jackal turnover that cost us game 3 against Vegas. Oh, maybe I'm thinking about something else. Whatever. Nils does things at the worst possible time. I mean, his biggest mistakes always are at the worst times, and it always happens over and over and over again. And that's probably not the one that I'm thinking of, but we put him in for like 1 game in the playoffs, and it was like, bang, instantly messed up. I mean, it did not take any time for him to find a way to get scored on. And I'm sure that's more a mental thing than anything, because we know he's not that bad. It's just, he always finds a way to get scored on every single time he touches the ice. It's in the defensive zone, and he's lost like a little puppy. And it's really frustrating to see, especially when we know how good he is. And like Chris said, he started on the first power play unit, and he lost that basically instantly too. Harley came in and took that away from him. It doesn't make any sense. He's so good.
Gurionov. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, he's so good. And this year, at least, his plus-minus stat is positive, but you know, that doesn't.
Pretty easy to do that on a number 2 team of the league.
He had minus the year before, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. It's a weird place with Lundkvist for me. He should be on the team, and he keeps doing things that make you think like, why do we have him in the lineup again? And then we play him like 3 minutes a night, and It's terrible. I'll give him a C- because he still played in the NHL for a bit. He failed again in the playoffs, though. I mean, he got taken out, and we put Petrovic in over him in the last series. We played Petrovic over Nils Lundqvist.
Yeah, and that's kind of what goes for me, is the fact that when he was playing in the playoffs, it was maybe 5 minutes a night, maybe. And then finally it's just like, okay, this is not working. We need somebody to play at least a little bit more. And Petrovic played like 8-9 minutes a night, I think, at some points. And so he didn't make any progress. He didn't take any roles or minutes away from anybody that he probably should be taking away from. And I just don't see how you can say anything but an F in this case. And that's what I'm gonna go with, because Chris, I'm right on board with you. Like, this is a guy who has all of the talent in the world, and has as much talent as Thomas Harley, in my opinion. I maybe not the same high ceiling that Thomas Harley has, but he has a lot of the same skills that Thomas Harley has. But I don't know what it is that causes him to not have the confidence of the coaching staff and confidence in himself to be able to play. Because like all three of us here, we're not sitting here like bashing him because we hate the guy. We are so frustrated, and I can't even imagine what the coaches are like. Can you imagine what they're talking about behind the scenes? It's like they're watching this. He's 24. This 24-year-old kid who's got all of the tools. He's got all of the baggage that he needs to be able to be successful in this type of league that is, kind of run and gun a lot now. It's very offensively heavy, and he can't put it together. That's why there's so much talk around him with the hardcore fan group when it comes to the Dallas Stars. It's just, there's so much talent there. He's not able to put it together, and he absolutely can do it. It's like, it's so frustrating.
He's one of these players that are just like, when he has the puck, he looks insane. I mean, he looks like one of the best defensemen on the ice when he's skating with the puck. It's when he doesn't have the puck and he's in his own zone and they're passing it around and getting him to move, and then he's lost. And then it's just a complete breakdown from there.
Yeah. And that's similar to what Harley was. And then he sucked up his pride and went and played in the AHL and learned how to be an everyday number one defenseman and to play that style. And I'm really wondering if, like Joe Baker said, he needs to go to Cedar Park, but he can't/won't. Yeah, won't is probably the one that I lean more heavily towards. Remember, the reason we got him from New York is because they wanted to send him down to the AHL, and he wasn't going to go. He decided to leave that organization rather than play in the AHL. But I'm wondering if there wasn't some conversations about, hey, we're going to re-sign you, but we're going to put you on waivers and send you to Cedar Park once the season starts so that you can actually start playing some hockey. Because, I mean, the signing I mentioned it after July 1. It still doesn't make any sense to me, the signing, because we've got all the right side filled up if Miro's playing on his offhand, which he has for the past forever. So it doesn't make much sense to me.
It does make sense in the fact that he's still young and he still has that ability. I don't think that,
But where's his spot?
Is there. That's the thing, is it's still there because Lyubushkin and Dunbar are only on short-term contracts. If Nils Lundqvist is able to hit his...
But where's his spot this season? Where is he going to play?
That's what I'm saying. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. And again, we have no background information on this. We're just purely speculating. But if I'm Jim Nell, I'm so frustrated as well, because I'm like trying to convince him. I'm like, look what we did with Thomas Harley. We tried to pull him up a little bit early. It didn't work. We sent him down to the AHL. He sucked up his pride, like you said, Chris, and it worked out perfectly. He came the last 6 games of the season. We went 6-0, had a great playoff run with him. You could do that too, but you need some time in the AHL, and now it's all. You wonder if it's too late. Like, even if he does finally, get over his own pride and his own ego a little bit, is it too late to send him down? Maybe he's already stunted his development in that process.
Well, and the
Right?
problem now is it's just so much harder because, like we mentioned, he doesn't want to, and then we would have to put him on waivers. Now, no one else was going to sign him for 1.1 million, so I think it's unlikely that someone claims him off waivers when they're going to have to pay that full 1.1 million. But
So
it's still a possibility.
So I think there is a way that I think waiver goes into effect during the first week of October. So during the off season, I think he can be sent down to the AHL without having to go through waivers, and then he can be. I don't know for sure.
I don't know if
That's
that's true. Yeah.
I think it is. I think it is, and he can stay in the AHL for the whole season. Okay. Now the problem is that if we do go through the season, all of a sudden, like all of our right-handed defensemen get hurt, and we need a right-handed defenseman, then if we call him up and he still sucks it up, then we absolutely can't send him back down, because if we put him through waivers, someone would probably claim him.
I don't know if
So
that's. I don't know if
it,
it's
it,
true
it's
that he could be put down before the season starts. I don't think that's correct. But
I think that is correct.
I don't know either. So we're both leaning just the opposite direction.
Well, it doesn't matter either way. For his
We'll
season
research
grade,
it.
he gets an F. At least for Chris and I. James is a little bit nicer; gives him a C-.
And I'm still gonna be a Lundqvist apologist whenever the season starts. I know I'm gonna get back on
Yes,
the hype
I know.
train.
Me
I just
too.
need a few more months.
Me too. Okay. Let's run through some of these. There's a little bit less to talk about with these next players. Yanni Hakanpää.
See, he took a step back this season from last year, and then him playing in that second pairing. I mean, that obviously just isn't where he belongs. If he played in the third role, he probably plays great, but in the second role, he had a lot of slip ups this year. He was this year's shooter.
It really stinks because I feel like a decent amount of that is probably due to injury. I mean,
that's kind of where I'm at too.
And he's gotten kind of injury prone in the last like year or two. I mean, he's been getting hurt pretty easily, and it's tough when you see him and Lindell be like the best penalty kill almost in the league year prior, and this year they come in and they there was a time when they couldn't stop anything. I mean, it was just impossible, and we had to take Hakanpää off the unit. I'm pretty sure we played Miro there, and Harley played there some, and Suter played there some, and that was just something that we didn't have to do at all season prior. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because of the injury, but we don't know how long or how not long he had it for. So
Right.
I'll give him a C-, 2 C-s in a row.
Dang, same as Lundqvist. That's harsh.
I'll give him a B. I think it's also kind of hard because he didn't play towards the end of the season, and then never played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So he didn't really get a chance, in his own defense, he didn't really get a chance to quote unquote redeem himself in the playoffs. Normally that's where people get the reputation of being a good player, a bad player.
And when he got hurt, he was playing at his worst too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's the last taste we have.
Right, and that's not fair to him. Just not really on a side tangent, but on a side note, I really hope he gets to play again. We haven't heard anything about him since July 1st. July 1st, the Toronto Maple Leafs mentioned something about their general manager, Brad Treliving, mentioned something about.
Yeah, Toronto signed him.
They signed him for, I think he's on $1 million contract, right?
No, he reportedly signed a 1.5 2-year deal, just like he did with the Stars a couple of years ago. But the problem is they haven't officially announced it, like from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, exactly. So, and here's the thing for those that don't know about Yanni Hakanpää. Apparently, the Stars were surprised that he signed a contract. Like it almost like they would have signed him back. And I think the understanding here is that his injury, whatever he's got, which I believe is something to do with one of his knees, they thought that like his basically done. Right?
Yeah,
it was just the injury from his knee is just irreparable, and he can't play. So when he signed that contract, that was just the rumor. I don't know for sure. That was just what I saw on social media from insiders and stuff like that. But they were surprised to hear that Yanni Hakanpää signed a contract with the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and I looked it up. Yeah, he hasn't officially signed, but yeah, I saw the things that said Yanni Hakanpää was going to Toronto. So
well, like the GM himself mentioned Yanni Hakanpää's name, like in the press conference at the end of the day on July 1st.
Yeah.
So
it must have been they did the physical and then they backed out of it. So that's interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't know. But here we are, like a full month later, and we still have nothing.
Yeah. That could be a thing that they're just waiting to see if he can play. Then they're gonna sign him. But until then,
that's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know though. So.
Yeah. Anyways, just for his sake, I hope he gets to play again. I really do. I never want to see someone's career get cut short like that. And even if it is for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I hope he gets to play again. Moving on, some other minor guys. Alexander Petrovic. How do you think he played?
He played one game in the regular season.
Sure.
So.
I'll give him a B+ because he came in and he did okay.
I'm not even comfortable grading him, dude. I mean, he played one game in the regular season.
Fair. Here's one that's gonna hurt. Joel Hanley.
S+++. Man, that would have been nice to have in the playoffs. I mean, you look back, when that happened, that he got claimed, it seemed so insignificant. And then once we were playing 5 defensemen in the playoffs, you're like, oh my goodness, we had another guy. Oh,
yeah, that one really stinks. It's how it works out sometimes. I mean, especially when Calgary sold and they had no one, there was just no chance he was getting through. There was not a chance he was going to clear waivers.
Just absolutely sucks. I was really hoping that they would be able to keep him, but that unfortunately was not the case. Okay, moving on. Jake Oettinger. This is a loaded one, in my opinion. There's so much here, and it's hard to give him a grade over the course of the entire season, but we have to. So, backs up against the wall, what do you give him?
I give him a B+. I'm going to kind of go on a little rant because his stats kind of followed how the team was playing as well. At the start of the season, the Stars really were focusing on offense. They were winning games with some crazy score lines. And then as the season went on, slowly defense got better and better. Andre's stats were a little bit better. Obviously, he wasn't near where he can be and his previous stats were. And then when Tanev gets back in, like we mentioned earlier, he kind of gets back into that form, and he seems like he's old Jake Oettinger and had some really good playoff games. I don't think he was the best goalie in the playoffs, and I think Bobrovsky probably was, and he leads their team to the cup. And that's kind of just the way it happens in the NHL, is that if your goalie can get hot, that can drag you all the way there. So he's definitely not the reason that we lost any playoff games. I feel like I don't chalk any of those up to Oettinger really screwed the pooch there, but I wouldn't say that there was very many that Otter won for us either. So for a goalie as high caliber as Jake Oettinger is, I think that's kind of a negative. So a little bit harsh there too. So that kind of gets me to B+ with a bad start to the regular season, good finish, and then kind of a meh playoffs.
I'll give him a normal B. No plus, no minus, normal B. This was the worst season as a whole that we've seen from Otter since he's started playing. I mean, some of that is due to the injury stint that he had in December and
full off season.
Yeah, and he had a hard time getting back into games after that too, and it was obvious. I mean, you could tell he was struggling when he first started coming back, and it like you said, Chris, it followed the course of the team too. I mean, and then once we got Tanev in, it started to pull more back towards the defensive side even more, and then he started doing really well. But I mean, he had a 899 at the I think that was the All-Star break. He had below 900 save percentage, and for your starting goaltender who you're trying to build your franchise on, that's not good enough. I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's not good enough. He did a lot better later in that last stretch, and even into the playoffs, he played fine. But he was never the monster that we've seen in years past, that we know he still can be. And you see flashes of it sometimes to some of his saves, but he never came in and just stole anything from anyone.
Yeah. And what I was saying earlier before I let you talk, Ryan, he was injured pretty much all offseason last year too, which is the first kind of major injury I think that Ottinger's had to deal with. And he said he was less prepared this season than he was years prior due to that injury, because it was pretty much he was out for the majority of the offseason, couldn't do much training. So I think that probably has something to do with it too.
I agree with some of the things that you guys are saying. As far as his regular season, there was definitely more to be desired. I think is the way that I would put it. His I think let me see. He ended the year with the 905 save percentage. So that's definitely below what he's been the last couple of years with let me see. 919, 914, 911. The 3 years previous. So and in his defense, injuries did play a very large part in this season particularly. He was not able to do his offseason stuff like he's normally used to, and he got hurt in the middle of the season, and Scott Wedgwood had to take over duties for a while. What I do disagree with you, Chris, though, is his play in the playoffs. I thought we have to be careful with how we compare this. I don't think we're going to see a performance from Otter like we saw when he was against the Calgary Flames that first full season he was the starter. I think that's the exception. So I thought he played really, really well in the playoffs. That was my particular take. He made, and I know there is something to be said that he did get out goalied by Skinner at certain points. That is absolutely true. Yes. But Skinner got hot at the right time. It doesn't mean Skinner's the better goalie. I still believe Otter's the better goalie, but he made some very key saves, and we keep looking at the losses, but in the wins, especially in the first 2 rounds, he was a very key component to that. And yes, again, Tanev could be seen as like a factor in that as well, but he was very good in the playoffs for me, I thought. So I don't want to give him a B+. I'll give him an A-. The regular season could have been better, but he got better and better and better after he came back from his injury.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying, that the Calgary thing is an exception and not the rule, and I agree with you there. But we talked about it when we got knocked out of the playoffs, that the Cup is the hardest trophy to win. Sometimes you need things to happen that are the exception to the rule and not the norm. So that's what, and we can see that. And I want to see Otter do what he did, or at least get close to it, with a team that is ready to win the Cup. The team that he played with against Calgary, we were happy to be in the playoffs. We were happy to be in the playoffs. It was fun. We got to see our new core in some intense pressure settings. It was great. But that team wasn't ready to do it. The team we have now is, and if we see him get close to that, I can't imagine anyone stopping the Stars team if he can get a sniff of what he did against Calgary.
Yeah, and the thing is, he doesn't have to do it for 7 games. He could, if he does normal mediocre for like 6 and steals 1 game by himself by having 1 game like that out of the entire series. I mean, that could be ridiculous. Like, you have your goaltender win you 1 game all by yourself, and you have the forwards that we have now. I mean, it makes it less of a coin flip for me, because like, when you get to the playoffs, it's very much like it's win or lose. It's regular season like normal, but it's to that different intensity, and it can be a coin flip at times. I mean, we had times where we saw weird bounces not go our way, and that's how we lost. That's how we went down to the Golden Knights 2-0 in that first series.
So the reason why people think and why they feel like at points Skinner kind of outdueled Otter is that it wasn't even necessarily that, Skinner was the better goalie. It was that he made the timely saves when he needed it. So I don't even necessarily think he needs to steal a game. It just you have to make that save, right? Does that make any sense? You have to make that save. You can always point back to the to that Edmonton series when the Stars were up 2-0 in Game 4, and Skinner made that one save, and then after that, the entire series flipped on its head. That's all you have. That's all you have to do. You have to make that one save, and he did that. He did that in both the Vegas series. He had that enormous stop on Jonathan Marchessault, and then he did the exact same thing against McKinnon in the Colorado series. So, but the reason why we talked about him getting outdueled against Skinner in Edmonton is that Skinner just made that timely save. I think that's there's something to be said there.
I might push back with you a little bit there. I think he did make some pretty clutch saves in this playoffs. I just think he didn't, like James said, he didn't have those games where he just stole it, and he has the capability to do that. I mean, in the Calgary series, like we were talking about, he stole 2 games on his own and almost a third. So he has the capability to steal 1 game a series, and if he does that, and it's us racing to 3 and the other team racing to 4. Like James said, that's the massive advantage, I think. And he did make some big clutch saves in the playoffs last year, except when we got to the Edmonton series. Then you're right, Ryan. Skinner got those big saves where Otter didn't. But overall, I think he is clutch. I just want to see him go beyond clutch and to that ungodly level just a few more times in the playoffs because he can do it. And it would be so amazing to see him do it with a good hockey team behind him.
Which he does have now. He's had the last couple of years. Okay, I'm not going to include Matt Murray in this. I love Matt Murray, but no. Scott Wedgwood, last but not least. What do you give him?
A+. I mean, he became the starter when that was never like even a thought in my mind. Honestly, I thought if we have Wedgwood as our starter, I mean, it's going to be a tire fire. And he and the whole team in general, they hung in there for a solid month and a half until it finally started to trail off. I mean, that he did an excellent job for what he was getting paid in the absence of Jake Ottinger.
Yep. I mean, the team almost won the President's Trophy, and we lost our starting goalie for a month and a half. That's all you really need to say about Scott Wedgwood. He did a great job, and he was at the price we needed him to be at. He got paid a little bit more, and he fully deserved it because he was one of the better backup goalies, I think, this year, especially during that stretch.
And it was annoying to watch him at times because we had the games that we just randomly go down like 3-0. But like I said, the team tended to rally around that and just come back hard on those games and fight all the way back in. And that's a big credit to the forwards on the team. But also, I mean, Wedgwood can't let another one at that point. And there were times when I see one go in and I'm like, okay, he can't let in another one. And he, to his credit, most of the time when I said that, he didn't. And our team had a ton of chances at huge comebacks because he stopped the bleeding when he had to.
I don't know if I said it, but A.
Yes, I was going to give him an A as well. He was exactly what the Stars needed. And I think he's going to be missed a lot. It does surprise me they didn't bring him back because I was curious. I went and looked at Puckpedia, rip to cap friendly. He got 1.5 for 2 years from them. And that's how much he was making with the Stars. Yep. So I question the decision as to why we had to go, and it's nothing against Smith, and yeah, he's making less money, but $500,000 is, I mean, is that really that big of a difference to try and keep a guy around who, gets along really well with Jake Ottinger and kind of pushes him in a positive way? So,
as crazy as it is in the cap era, I'm gonna say yes. I think that's worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, even potentially
Especially-
losing 3 more games to get $500,000, that very well could be worth it when you come to the playoffs.
Especially when
But
you look at the
it's like,
defensemen that we pick up.
and that's fair and everything, but they still made the moves they did, which we talked about, before before July, and trading Roddick Foxa to St. Louis and then buying out Ryan Suter, who went to St. Louis. So you still do those cap moves, but the I don't know.
I think
I
that
would
proves my point more.
I would have liked to see Scott Wedgwood stay.
I would too. Love Scott Wedgwood.
And the only thing I can think of is maybe he Klingberg'd it, if that makes any sense, right? He thought there was more money out there than there actually was. He thought he could get more than 1.5. Maybe he thought he could get like 2 or a little bit more. And then he got out there and realized, no, there's actually not that out there, and just stuck with the 1.5 or whatever. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
I don't think that's what happened. I think the Stars were solid on what they were going to pay for a backup goalie, which I agree with. I think the Stars did the right thing there too. And I mean, don't sniff at $500,000. Dude got a 50% raise. Like, so yeah, he did a good job.
Yep. Well, anyways, rip to him. I would say good luck to him, but he's on Nashville, so
So lose every game.
So lose every game. Scott Wedgwood.
Make
I'm just
your
kidding.
1.5 million and lose every game.
Great guy. Gonna miss him a whole lot. Okay, well, we're already at 50 minutes, so I think we're gonna have to save the way too early predictions for next week. But we do have a Who Cares segment for today, y'all. So let's get into this. This was my idea, so I'll introduce it. It's pretty self-explanatory. We just decided this months ago, since we knew that the Olympics were going to be coming up. We're doing our top 3 summer Olympic sports or games or events, whatever you want to call them. Your top 3 Olympic sports / games / whatever. Chris, number 3rd.
Handball. Handball is huge in Europe, and it looks kind of doofusy. Like, it looks like a European sport, if you know what I'm saying. But it's kind of interesting. It's weird. It's weird, and I like it. Handball.
James, number 3rd.
I'll go with badminton for number 3rd, because it doesn't look very impressive when you're looking at it from the outside. But have you ever tried to play badminton? Like, have you ever
harder than
tried?
it
It's
is
really
a lot harder.
And they're hitting those tiny little things really fast.
There's another name for it. Amanda called it something called badminton, something else. I don't remember what she said. I'll have to ask her after we get off air here. But anyway, my number 3 is pretty basic. It's tennis. I love tennis. It's been one of my favorite sports since I was little, and I played it in high school, played it in junior high. So tennis is my number 3.
I raise you. Table tennis.
No, I will give you that one. Okay, you win.
That sport is crazy. That's a fun little backyard game that you play. And I like to consider myself like, hey, I'm okay at ping pong. I can ping some pong. But man, I cannot play ping pong. Do you see what those guys are doing? They got this tiny little table. They're hitting it from 12 feet away, and they're hitting it right on the line of that tiny little table with that tiny little ball with those tiny little paddles. And they turn this little backyard nothing game into, man, it looks like a workout. Like, they're exhausted. They're sweating as much as Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true.
And I'm right there with you, Chris. That's my number 2.
Yeah,
it's table tennis. I mean, that thing's look great. It's the thing that's kind of nice is I can relate to table tennis a little more. So like when they're hitting it, you're like, yeah, I can hit the ball like that, but not that fast.
Not that hard. I'll give and it's just because I'll go ahead and do it. My number 2 is rugby, and it's a very recent one. Mostly just because it's extremely interesting, man. Like the men that play that and like in men's rugby, they're like manly men. Like, oh my gosh, like you just want one of them in a bar fight, and you could be like you and him versus 5 other guys, and you would still win. Like you want one of these guys on your team when you're at a bar fight. So rugby is also fun to watch. It is just looks so tough. I can't even imagine trying to play a sport like that, and it's extremely entertaining. So that's
But
my
the
number
scrums
2.
are so boring, though.
That there's some truth to that, but
When they're slinging the
meh.
little ball around, I love that part. That's a lot of fun. But then someone tackles somebody and they're like, "Oh, we all gotta hug each other. Sorry, give us 5 minutes. We're all gonna hug each other. We're gonna hug it out, and then we'll start throwing the ball around again." I wish they just keep throwing the ball. My number 1 is basically just handball again, but it's in the water. Water polo. Man, this sport is fun. It is crazy. Like, they are, and it's even crazier. Like, at first I thought, okay, this sport's pretty nuts. And then I realized they're treading water the entire time that they're playing this game. If I tread water for 2 minutes, I'm like, man, I need a break. I need a nap. And they're treading water and swimming and throwing this ball up, and they're like jumping out of the water. Like, there's no ground. What are you jumping off of? Yeah, that's crazy. Don't love the uniforms, but luckily most of the time they're in the water, so you don't have to see that part. But
I'll
it's
say
exciting.
I'll jump before James because water polo is my number 1 as well. I enjoy
Yes.
watching it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why.
The games are really quick too. They're done like hour 15. Boom! You just watched a water polo match, and like that. I mean, for my like terrible attention span, it is perfect.
James, what's your number 1?
My number 1 is soccer.
Okay,
this is a newfound love for me. I have really enjoyed watching soccer recently. I don't know why. Maybe some of it is because you do like, I don't know. It has a lot of things that are just fun to watch. The getting hurt and flopping around on the ground is really boring and stupid.
That's
and
tough,
I wish they would give people penalties for that, because that would be hilarious. But
I think that's the main thing that holds me back from soccer, because I watch soccer every
bunch of
other year.
wimps.
I watch it during the Copa America and I watch it during the World Cup. And I love it during those 2 times. But man, do I get worn out from the flopping. I fully agree with you on that.
Well, right. Like, think about it though. It's like you got basketball, right? LeBron James cries going off the court because he has a cramp. And then you've got, soccer where someone barely taps you on the shin or doesn't even touch you, and you sit there and grasp it like Peter Griffin.
Yeah.
And then you got hockey with like Rich Peverly. He literally dies on the bench, gets revived, and then asked to go back in the game. Like, come on here. Like,
and my thing is, like, I'm okay with people trying to buy calls like at basketball. They do it a little bit, and I can live with it. I don't like it.
No,
but
I
when they're
can't.
rolling around and actually getting carried off on a stretcher, and then they run back out there at the next stoppage, it's like, okay, what are we doing? This makes us look dumb.
I enjoy it though. I think most of the goals that are scored in that are like ridiculous.
Yes, agreed.
They look insane. It's something that I played soccer for 1 year when I was little, and that was it. I mean, the amount of running that goes on during a match, they're on for 45 minutes at a time, which is incredible, to be honest. And the goals are just exciting. I mean, it's part of why I like hockey, because when something goes in, normally it's because something crazy happens.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's similar to water polo. Like when you finally realize they're treading water the whole time, when you realize how far soccer players run in a match, they're running 5Ks every match.
I would say longer.
It is insane.
Honestly. Especially if you're a forward. If you're a forward, you're just
a striker, Ryan.
Striker, forward, whatever. I'm old here, okay? I remember the days when Tim Howard was the goalie for Team USA, back when we were good at soccer.
Yeah,
they were better. They were better then than they are now.
Well, yeah,
I can tell you that.
Lost in the group stages of Copa America.
Imagine losing to Panama.
Oh my
I
gosh.
could never. That was a bogus red card. That red card was bogus.
I knew that was coming. Anyways, guys, okay. That's our top 3 Olympic games / sports, whatever you want to call it. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I haven't even really gotten to watch a lot of Olympic sports, but now I kind of want to go watch some.
Oh man, I've been watching it during work. Man, I'm getting nothing done.
We're just gonna clip this and like tag your.
If you're my
your
employer, you didn't see this.
All right. Well, Chris, James, y'all got anything else before we wrap it up here tonight?
Nope.
I'm all good.
It's boring right now, but hockey will return soon. It kind of stinks, but we'll get there. We'll absolutely get there. Thank y'all for following along with us live here tonight. There's even more of you who are listening to us afterwards. We appreciate y'all as always. Thank you to Manscaped, DraftKings Sportsbook, and BetterHelp for being our sponsors. Again, use that promo code THPN. It's above Chris's head in the YouTube video. Thank you to all of you who continue to listen to us throughout the off season. We're a little inconsistent with it. It's mostly my fault. But we're trying to do at least 1 episode a week. And we'll always try to be here for you guys to give you guys some off-season content. As always, sarcasticremarks.com is the website. sarcasticremarksshop.com is the merch store. And find us anywhere on social media at sarcasticr. Leave us a 5-star review anywhere you listen. And click like and subscribe on YouTube. Along with Chris and James. My name is Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Hope you guys have an awesome morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. And we hope you guys have a great week. And we'll see you again very, very shortly. Have a good night.